My name is Bianca Russo. I'm 30 years old, and if you had asked me that night what I was about to lose, I would have said nothing. Because from the outside, it looked like I had already lost enough. Grief does that to you. It reshapes your sense of what matters, makes you believe you can survive anything, until something proves you wrong in the quietest, most calculated way possible. Thanksgiving wasn't supposed to be that moment. It was just dinner. Or at least, that's what I thought when I walked in beside my daughter, Elena. She was 15, still at that fragile age where confidence comes in waves, where one moment she feels unstoppable, and the next she questions everything about herself. Lately, she had been into something new, filming short videos with her friends, running, jumping, mimicking animal movements. Quadroics, she called it. It looked unusual, sure, but it made her happy. It made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. And for me, that was enough. Apparently for them, it wasn't. Dinner started normally. Plates passed around, quiet conversations overlapping, the kind of forced warmth that never quite feels real, but everyone pretends not to notice. I didn't realize anything was wrong until the room went quiet. Not gradually. All at once. That kind of silence doesn't happen by accident. It means something has been decided. I just didn't know what yet. My father-in-law stood up slowly, like he had rehearsed the movement. His expression was calm, controlled, not angry, not emotional, certain. That was the first thing that made my chest tighten. He didn't look at me. He looked directly at Elena. And then he said it. We've agreed she shouldn't be included anymore. No explanation. No hesitation. Just that. For a second, I thought I misheard him. Because people don't say things like that. Not in real life. Not about a 15-year-old girl sitting at the same table. But no one reacted. Not immediately. And that was worse. Because it meant they understood exactly what he meant. Elena didn't move at first. She just sat there, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes fixed somewhere on the table, like her mind was trying to catch up to what had just happened. She had those small clip-on ears in her hair again. Soft brown, almost blending into her hair if you didn't look closely. I remember thinking how small that detail was. How harmless. And yet somehow, it had become enough. I turned to Luca. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't need to. I was waiting for him to laugh it off, to shut it down, to say something, anything that would make it clear this wasn't real, that this wasn't happening. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't even look at her. And in that moment, I understood something I wasn't ready to face yet. This wasn't new to him. Then came the explanation. Calm. Measured. Almost clinical. My father-in-law talked about image, about reputation, about how behavior like Elena's reflected on the family, on the business, on everything they had built. He said it like it was logical, like it was obvious, like removing her wasn't cruel, it was necessary. Then he looked at me, and his tone shifted just enough to make it personal. He said I was allowing it, that I wasn't thinking about her future, that I was encouraging something that would only isolate her later in life. No one interrupted him. Not one person at that table said this was wrong. Not one. Elena finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, careful. So, I should leave? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Just like that. Like he was asking her to pass the salt. Something inside me snapped. I pushed my chair back so hard it scraped against the floor, the sound cutting through the silence like it didn't belong there. You don't get to decide that, I said. My voice didn't shake. Not yet. Not about my daughter. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He just looked at me with the same calm certainty and said, "This is a family decision." That word hit harder than anything else. Decision. Not opinion. Not concern. Decision. Which meant it had already been made. Discussed. Agreed on. Without me. Elena stood up before I could say anything else. She didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't look at anyone. She just grabbed her jacket and walked out. That hurt more than if she had screamed, because it meant she believed them. Or worse, she didn't think fighting would change anything. I followed her outside, calling her name, trying to catch up, but she kept walking until we reached the car. Only then did she stop. Only then did she turn to look at me. Her eyes were clear. Too clear. I didn't do anything wrong, right? The question came out so simply, it almost didn't sound like a question. I answered immediately. No. And then again. No, you didn't. I kept saying it, even after she nodded, even after she looked away. Because I needed her to believe it. Because after what just happened, I knew exactly what they were trying to make her feel. When we got home, she went straight to her room. No slammed doors. No crying. Just silence. The kind that settles into the walls and makes everything feel heavier. Luca came back later like nothing had happened. Like it had just been another dinner. No apology. No explanation. He just said, "You know how my dad is." That was it. And that was the moment everything shifted. Because it wasn't just him. It was all of them. They had already decided Elena didn't belong. And no one thought I deserved to be part of that decision. I didn't argue that night. I didn't yell. But I didn't sleep either. I kept replaying every second of it. The words. The silence. The way no one reacted. And the more I thought about it, the less it felt like this was about a hobby. My father-in-law doesn't do things like that without a reason. He doesn't create scenes unless he already knows how they end. Which meant this. This wasn't impulsive. It was planned. And whatever he was trying to force with that moment, I hadn't seen the full picture yet. I didn't wake Elena the next morning. She didn't go to school. I didn't make her. I stood outside her bedroom door for a while, listening. No music. No talking. No little movements across the floor. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes a mother imagine every terrible thought her child might be having and blame herself for not stopping the world before it touched her. I left her alone because I didn't know what to say yet. Around 9, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then something in me tightened. I answered. The man on the other end introduced himself as Daniel Brooks. He said he was the family's legal advisor. Not Luca's. Not my father-in-law's. The family's. That wording put me on edge immediately. He didn't waste time. "Mrs. Russo, are you aware of the decision made last night?" I stared toward the hallway. Yes. There was a pause. Like he had expected a different answer. Then he asked, "Has Elena been formally removed from any shared environments yet?" I didn't understand the question. Removed from what? Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said carefully, "I strongly advise you not to make any sudden decisions until a few things are clarified." My hand tightened around the phone. What is going on? His tone changed. Not much. Just enough. Has Luca spoken to you? No. Have you signed anything recently? Any updated agreements, amendments, restructuring documents tied to family assets or the business? That was when something cold moved through me. Because yes, a few weeks earlier, my father-in-law had pushed paperwork across a table and called it routine.
Efficiency.
Tax reasons. Future planning. I had signed. So had Luca. I hadn't thought twice about it. When I told Daniel that, he went quiet. Then he said, "There may have been assumptions made about how those documents would be applied." "Stop talking in circles," I said. "Tell me what this means." He exhaled. Then finally, he said something clear. Elena's exclusion may not have been symbolic. I didn't move. It may have been legal. For a second, I couldn't understand him. Legal? She was 15. She was a child. He explained slowly, choosing each word like it might explode if handled wrong.
Certain clauses.
Conditional structures. Beneficiaries tied to behavior, public image, and what he called family representation. If someone was deemed damaging to that representation, their status could be challenged.
Deemed damaging.
That was the same spirit behind my father-in-law's words at dinner. My stomach dropped. "Are you telling me they planned this?" I asked. "That they used paperwork to justify humiliating my daughter?" Daniel didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "This situation may not hold if challenged." That was when I understood. He wasn't calling to support them. He was calling because something had gone wrong. "What exactly is the problem?" I asked. After a long silence, he said, "Because of how last night was handled, they may have exposed themselves to serious liability."
Liability.
Not cruelty. Not betrayal.
Liability.
I looked toward Elena's closed door. Then I asked the only question that mattered. What happens if I don't go along with any of this? This time, he didn't hesitate. Then this becomes very difficult for them. For them. Not for me. That was the first moment I felt the ground shift under my feet. Until then, I thought I was reacting to what they had done. But now, I saw it. They had made a move, and it wasn't as clean as they thought. I ended the call without saying anything else. Then I walked to Elena's door and knocked. She opened it after a few seconds. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. Her face was pale, her hair messy, the clip-on ears gone from her dresser, like she had hidden them from herself. I didn't bring up last night right away. I just asked if she wanted to sit with me in the kitchen. She nodded. No questions. That wasn't like her. Usually, Elena wanted to know everything. She would study my face, read my tone, try to solve the room before anyone explained it. This time, she just followed. I made tea. She didn't drink it. I sat across from her and realized I couldn't soften this enough to make it painless. So, I told her the truth. Not all of it, but enough. I told her what happened last night wasn't just someone being cruel, that decisions had been made behind our backs, that there might be legal things connected to Luca's family and the business. She didn't understand every part, but she understood the one thing that mattered. It hadn't been random. Her first question wasn't about money. Not documents. Not the business. She looked down at the table and asked, "Did Dad know?" I didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. No tears. No anger. Just quiet. Then she said, "So they were waiting for me to mess up." That hit harder than anything Daniel had told me, because that was exactly what it sounded like. Like they had created a rule, built a trap around it, and waited for a 15-year-old girl to be herself loudly enough to punish. I reached across the table. "Elena, listen to me. None of this is your fault. She didn't look convinced. So I said it again. Nothing about you made this okay. My phone rang again. Same number. I stepped into the hallway. Daniel didn't waste time. Have you spoken to Luca? No. He exhaled, like that confirmed something. Then he told me what he hadn't said earlier. The documents I signed weren't just restructuring. They included a clause allowing the family board to redefine who qualified as a dependent beneficiary under certain conditions. Elena was listed. Or she had been. Until last night. My chest tightened. Are you saying they removed her legally in that moment? Not exactly, he said. But what happened last night could be used as justification. A witness decision, unified, recorded in memory, if not on paper. Everything about that dinner suddenly made sense in the worst possible way. The silence. The lack of surprise. The way no one stepped in. It wasn't shock. It was agreement. Why are you telling me this? I asked. For the first time, Daniel stopped sounding like a lawyer. Because they didn't expect you to push back. Then, after a pause, he added, and they definitely didn't expect the way it was done. What does that mean? The clause required discretion, internal handling, not public exclusion, not something that could be interpreted as targeting a minor in a humiliating way. In other words, my father-in-law hadn't just crossed a line. He had made the line visible. And that made it dangerous. What were they trying to gain? I asked. Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he said one word. Control. That word stayed with me. Because it wasn't only about money. It was about leverage. About deciding who belonged. Who obeyed. Who could be erased. And Elena didn't fit inside the picture they wanted. When I hung up, I didn't go back to the kitchen right away. I stood in the hallway and put the pieces together. The paperwork. The pressure about image. The dinner. The sentence. We've agreed. Not a reaction. A setup. And Elena was never supposed to fight it. I walked back into the kitchen and sat across from her. She looked at me like she already knew things had gotten worse. I kept my voice steady. We're leaving for a few days. Her eyes widened. Are we in trouble? I shook my head. No. And for the first time since Thanksgiving dinner, I knew something with absolute certainty. They were. They just didn't realize it yet. We didn't pack much. Just the essentials. Clothes, documents, Elena's laptop. A few things that mattered, and everything that could prove something if it came down to that. I moved through the house quickly, not in panic, but with clarity. Because for the first time since that dinner, I understood something completely. Staying still was exactly what they expected me to do, and I wasn't going to give them that. Elena stayed close the entire time, not hovering, not asking questions, just present. Like she didn't want to disappear out of my sight for even a second. That told me more than anything she could have said. I was zipping up the last bag when Luca walked in. He stopped in the doorway. For a second, he just stared, like he didn't recognize what he was seeing. What are you doing? He asked. His voice wasn't angry, just confused. Like this didn't match the version of reality he had already decided on. We're leaving for a few days, I said. He frowned. Why are you overreacting? Overreacting. That word should have made me angry. It didn't. It just confirmed something. This will settle down, he continued. My dad didn't mean it the way it sounded. I looked at him. Really looked at him, at the man I had trusted to stand beside me, beside us. And I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just asked one question. Did you know? He didn't answer right away. His eyes shifted, just slightly. Then he said, "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." That was all I needed. Not denial. Not confusion.
Confirmation.
I nodded once. Slowly. Then I asked, "The documents, the clauses, the board, you knew about that too?" He stepped further into the room, like closing the distance would somehow make this easier. "It's standard," he said quickly. "It's just long-term protection for the company." "For the company?" I repeated. "And removing Elena is part of that protection?" He didn't answer. That silence said everything. I picked up my bag. "We're leaving." This time, there was no room for interpretation. He followed me into the hallway. "Bianca, wait, what are you planning to do?" "I haven't decided yet," I said. That wasn't entirely true. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. "My dad is already trying to fix this," Luca added quickly. "Lawyers are involved. If you move now, you could complicate things."
Complicate.
That word again. Like this was strategy. Like this was a business problem. I grabbed my keys and looked at him. They already complicated it. And then I walked out. Elena followed without hesitation. We didn't look back. The hotel was small, quiet. On the edge of town, where no one accidentally runs into you and asks questions you don't want to answer. It wasn't comfortable, but it felt safe. Elena sat on the edge of the bed while I unpacked the bare minimum. She didn't ask where we were going next. Didn't ask how long we were staying. She just stayed close. That silence from her wasn't emptiness. It was adjustment. Like she was recalibrating her entire understanding of what family meant. That evening, my phone started ringing. Then buzzing. Then vibrating nonstop. Messages, calls, emails. Not from Luca. From his father. At first, they were short. "We need to talk." This got out of hand. "You're misunderstanding the situation." Then they got longer. More careful. More calculated. He started reframing everything. Said it wasn't about exclusion. It was about guidance. Said Elena could earn her place back if certain expectations were met. I stopped reading after that. Earn her place back. Like belonging was something you could lose. Like love came with conditions. Like a 15-year-old girl had to prove she deserved to exist in a room. I put my phone face down. I wasn't going to respond. Not anymore. It rang again. "Daniel." This time, he didn't sound controlled. He sounded rushed. "The situation is escalating faster than expected," he said. I leaned against the wall. "What does that mean?" "They've already tried to move forward with formalizing the decision," he said. "Internal documents are being prepared to reflect Elena's removal." I closed my eyes for a second. "And that's a problem for them. Why?" "Because now it looks retaliatory," he said immediately. I didn't respond. He continued. "Once something becomes visible, once there are witnesses, once there's a clear moment tied to a minor being publicly excluded, it stops being internal policy." I could hear the tension in his voice now. "It becomes something that can be challenged, investigated." I opened my eyes and looked over at Elena. She was scrolling through her phone, but not really seeing it. "What are they trying to do now?" I asked. "They're trying to reverse it quietly." A small, humorless laugh slipped out of me. "Quietly." After what they did. Does that undo anything? I asked. No, he said, without hesitation. The damage is already done, legally and otherwise. I walked toward the window, looked out at the empty parking lot. Still.
Unmoving.
They thought this was about control, I said quietly. Daniel didn't respond. They thought they could shape behavior, protect an image. I tightened my grip on the phone. But they made it public. Silence on the other end. And once something like that is seen, I continued, you don't get to pretend it didn't happen. I turned slightly, looking back at Elena. She hadn't moved, hadn't looked up. But I knew she was listening. What happens if I don't fix this quietly? I asked. There was a pause. Then Daniel said, then they lose control of it completely. I ended the call. And for the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt calm. Not because things were better, but because I finally understood something clearly. They thought they were removing Elena from something. What they actually did was give me a reason to remove us from everything. I walked back to the bed and sat beside her. She glanced at me. Just briefly. Are we going back? She asked. I shook my head. No. That was the first honest answer I had given her all day. She nodded. Slowly. Like she expected it. Like some part of her had already let go. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. That night, I didn't respond to a single message. Not from Luca. Not from his father. Not even from Daniel. Because whatever happened next, it wasn't going to be on their terms. The next morning, I didn't wait for anyone to call. I called first. Not Luca. Not his father.
A lawyer.
I explained everything without rushing. The dinner, the words, the silence, the documents, Daniel's calls. I didn't leave anything out. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end. Then he asked one question. Do you have proof of what happened that night?
Proof.
Not witnesses. Not opinions. Not interpretations. Something concrete. I had at least 10 people at that table, I said. That's not what I mean, he replied. And then it clicked. I turned to Elena. Your phone, I said gently. You were filming earlier that night. Do you still have those videos? She hesitated for half a second. Then she nodded and handed it to me. We sat side by side on the edge of the bed as I scrolled through her gallery. Short clips.
Laughter. Fragments of conversation.
Nothing important. Until it was. There it was. Not the entire speech, but enough. My father-in-law standing, his voice clear.
Calm. Controlled.
We've agreed she shouldn't be included anymore. And then, silence.
Heavy. Unmistakable.
No one objecting. No one stepping in. I sent the video. My lawyer didn't interrupt. When he finally spoke, his tone had changed. Don't respond to them anymore, he said. Then, after a beat, and don't sign anything else. That was it. No long explanation. No dramatic warning. Just 2 sentences.
Clear. Final.
I hung up and looked at Elena. She was watching me closely now. Are we okay? She asked. I met her eyes. Yes. And this time, I meant it. Because now, this wasn't just something that had happened to us. It was something that could be proven. And that changed everything. I didn't answer a single message after that. Not from Luca. Not from his father. Not even from Daniel. Everything went through my lawyer. Within a week, things started shifting. Fast. The same people who sat in silence that night suddenly weren't so sure anymore. Statements changed. Details blurred. What had been a family decision became a misunderstanding. It didn't matter. The video didn't change. Neither did the moment, or the intent behind it. My father-in-law's company paused internal decisions almost immediately. My lawyer explained it simply. When something like this is challenged, everything connected to it gets examined. Everything. That was the part they hadn't expected. Control only works when it stays quiet. This wasn't quiet anymore. Luca tried to reach me. Not directly. Through other people. Through messages passed along like he was afraid to speak to me himself. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing left to clarify. He had known. That didn't change. What did change was everything else. I cut the business ties completely. It wasn't as complicated as they had made it sound before. It just required one thing. A decision. I made sure Elena was removed from anything connected to them. On our terms. Not theirs. No clauses. No conditions. No family representation. Just freedom. We moved a month later. A new place. A new routine. No unexpected visits. No conversations about image. No pressure to be something we weren't. Elena slowly came back to herself. Not all at once, but enough. She started filming again sometimes. Not as often. But when she did, she looked relaxed. Like she wasn't being watched. Like she wasn't being evaluated. Like she was allowed to exist without earning it. And that was all I had ever wanted for her. As for Luca's father, I heard through my lawyer that they tried to settle things quietly. Contain it. Control it. Undo it. They didn't succeed. Because the moment he stood up in a room full of people and told a 15-year-old girl she didn't belong, he lost control. Not just legally, but completely. He lost access to us. And that part? That wasn't a legal decision. That was mine. And it's the one thing he'll never be able to reverse.